You are listening to the Navigating Adult ADHD podcast, where it's all about education, support, and coaching for adults with ADHD. I'm your host, Zena, a late diagnosed ADHDer, here to help you unpack the challenges, frustrations, and the positive side of living with ADHD. With my no BS approach, I'll help you to better understand your unique ADHD brain and how you can work with it to feel better, increase your self-confidence, improve your relationships, and ultimately achieve your goals. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Navigating Adult ADHD. I am so happy that we are here together today. And we are going to be going through 9 of the most common ADHD symptoms for adults. That's what we're talking about today. And I'm also going to share with you how they may show up in your life. Now, before I do that, I just wanted to let you know I'm feeling a little dysregulated today. I'm feeling like my ADHD is kind of on fire. I've had that experience the last few days where I have just felt like not quite my normal self. And a funny story, I was coaching a client the other day and she made reference to having ADHD days and normie days. I was like, what? So today is a ADHD day, which I'm happy to have, but it feels like it's like fired up. ADHD on fire today. So that's what we're rolling with, and we're doing life anyway. That's how we do it. So my friends, I'm not having a normie day. I feel like last week when I recorded a podcast for you all, I had so much energy. I was super excitable, and I was quite I noticed I was talking really, really fast if you listen to that episode, but this week it's quite different. You got the slower me. So that's what we got. All right, let's roll. So my friends, let's talk about common ADHD symptoms. I'm going to break them into the 9 categories and I'm going to share with you what that might look like. But before we do, I think it's really important that we understand that ADHD varies from person to person, right? It is not like a one size fits all. It is, different in every single person who has it. The way it shows up in our life, the way it impacts us. So the spectrum of traits varies really, really widely. For example, people with ADHD are often thought of as being really, really messy, but that's not necessarily true, right? Some may be the average kind of mess, but some may also be incredibly tidy, right? It's not at all a one-size-fits-all condition. And this is why it's often misunderstood, because it differs hugely from person to person. And I read this quote the other day. I've got no idea who said it or where I bloody read it, because I would love to have it and quote it exactly, right? But somebody, an ADHD expert, was saying how having ADHD is not creating new problems. It's exacerbating existing ones. I can't say that word, exacerbating. I don't know. Okay, you're with me, right? But back to what I was trying to say, having ADHD is not right. It's not like we're creating new problems, right? For example, everybody runs late sometimes, or everybody struggles with procrastination, or everybody can be hard on themselves, or, overthink things from time to time. That's true, right? But when you have ADHD, you do these things more. It's like intensifying them, right? Like maybe pouring gasoline on these things. So again, I'm sharing with you today these common traits and symptoms, and it's not that you're necessarily going to tick every single box. And the boxes that you do tick, the way that does show up for you in your life will vary from the way it shows up to me or somebody else with ADHD. Okay? I also wanted to let you know I have created a download to go with this. So this would be especially helpful if you are not yet diagnosed, if you are waiting to have your appointment. I would definitely recommend that you print out this download, you circle those that apply to you, and maybe even make some reference to some examples that you could be sharing during your appointment. I think that would be incredibly beneficial. So I will put a link to that in the show notes, or you can go to Navigating Adult ADHD, which is the name of the podcast, and then put /symptoms, and you can get that, okay? So again, you can get like a download of all of the things that I am sharing with you today. All right, let's go, my friend. So number 1, our first common trait or symptom is impulsivity. So what does that look like? Jumping to conclusions. Anybody else or just me? So jumping to conclusions, for example, a really common one that I see is, somebody hasn't texted you back and you've said that you've seen that they've read that message. And so you jump to the conclusion that, oh, they obviously don't want to spend time with me, or they don't care about me, or I've upset them, or I've done something wrong. Like jumping to a conclusion like that really, really quickly. It could also be that you're really impatient and you struggle with having to wait. Right? Like it might be having to wait your turn if you're playing a game. It could be like waiting for an appointment and having to sit there and actually wait, being really impatient. Impulsivity is also interrupting people all the time. Like we're really impulsive to like say what we want to say so we don't forget it, or, we're just going to blurt it out. Definitely me. It's also being quick to react, right? So for example, maybe your partner texts you and says, hey, going to be home late tonight. And you automatically react with, well, don't expect me to wait up for you, or, don't expect to have dinner made for you, or something like that. Like just being really quick to react, being reactive in that way. Okay. Impulsivity is also jumping into projects or tasks without considering all of the steps involved, then getting maybe frustrated or bored with it, and then just quitting that thing. So for example, like I went out a while back now and I bought all of this like fluoro artwork. I bought canvases to paint on, and I brought like paintbrushes and like the little the little things that you put your paint in, like you like squeeze your paint into these like little cup type things. I was like, obviously I need those, and then like all these different colored paints that were like fluorescent, and I literally painted 2. And then I've got all of these supplies and all of this stuff. And I was just like, yeah, no, I'm done with that. Like, I kind of got over it real quick. I was very impulsive to go and buy all the stuff, convinced that I was going to be doing it forever and I was going to start making all of this art and I'd probably end up selling it, or I don't know what. But like, I wanted fluorescent artwork because I struggled to find it anywhere. I was like, that's a great idea. And now I've got all of this stuff in my wardrobe. That's a great example of like jumping into something without necessarily thinking it right through. Then impulsivity can also be like making reckless decisions. So I remember this one time as a teenager, my best friend had an older sister with a boyfriend who had like a racy car. Like it was a, what was it? Oh my gosh, I'm really good with cars and the name has completely lost me. But anyway, like it was something out of like a Fast and the Furious movie, okay? And he's like, do you guys want to come for a ride? And I was like, hell yeah, and just like jumped in, did not put my seatbelt on. And we were doing like 180 Ks on this like 80 K stretch of road. Like it was ridiculous. We were going so fast and I was just really reckless and not putting on a seatbelt in this car. And even just the decision to just go, like it was silly. So that might be an example of a reckless decision. Another one could be being like, yeah, I'm just going to quit my job and move across country, like without kind of putting any thought into that. May or may not have done that one too. Impulsivity can also be starting projects or tasks without reading all of the instructions or like listening to all of the instructions carefully. So, funny one. I was helping my partner put together a set of drawers for one of our boys, right? And it's like, like the dresser drawers that you put your clothes in, right? And I thought that he was like looking at the instructions, and he kind of was, but I was like, oh yeah, like we'll figure it out, like whatever. And we finished this set of drawers and they were really good, but we had missed this one plank that went on the bottom, like a baseboard at the bottom to like cover up the bottom below the drawers. So there was this weird looking gap right at the bottom. It didn't look very good. And we had to undo practically the whole thing because that was one of the early steps that we'd missed. Like we hadn't even looked at the directions to fit that in. Like I had no idea when I was looking at this piece what the heck it did or where it went. And when we undid it all and then put the furniture back together, I don't know what happened, but it was wobbly. And to this day, this like set of dresser drawer things, like this tall boy, shall we say, like you can like literally just tap it with your hand and it like shakes side to side, it like wobbles. So yeah, that's an example of that. But again, that's impulsivity, right? Like not reading or listening to the instructions and just jumping in. So number 2 in our common ADHD symptoms and traits is distractibility, getting very easily distracted. So that could look like you struggle to ignore conversations or somebody maybe walking past your office, right? So those external distractions can be very like kind of hijack you and grab your attention and, be like that squirrel, like looking over there, then over there, then over there, right? Distractibility can also be like difficulty focusing on what's most important, like the task in front of you. So for example, just before I went to record this podcast, I found myself on Google looking up a sheep card game. I kid you not, my friends. This past weekend, I was with my family and they had this really fun card game. It was, I don't even know what it's called, but it was like about sheep and you collect flocks of sheep and like people can steal them and all sorts of different things. And it was just so fun. And so I randomly thought of it and was like, oh, I should look it up and see if I can buy us a pack of these cards to play this game. And I was like, I know I'm meant to be recording a podcast, and all of a sudden I found myself on Google looking up this game, right? And the task at hand was to record this episode with you right now. That, my friends, is distractibility. Another thing that could look like is having difficulty blocking out unnecessary thoughts in your mind, right? Many adults with ADHD have difficulty with having a very busy mind, right? And that comes with lots of thoughts ping-ponging around or like bugging us, like kind of like poking you on the shoulder, like, hey. If you have difficulty blocking out those, that can be very distracting. Also, distractibility is when something more exciting, more interesting comes along, you will just drop what you're doing or forget what you're doing and then go off and do that. Okay? Number 3 is time blindness. So that is like a difficulty to estimate time and how long things might take you, right? Your perception of time is challenging, shall we say. Now, I did not know that this was a thing until I was diagnosed, and I was like, oh my gosh, this explains so much of my life. So what does that actually look like? Time blindness can look like forgetting to allow travel time in between appointments. So you say to somebody, yes, like I finish work at 5, so I'll be there at 5 o'clock, right? And yeah, you do finish work at 5, but you don't take into consideration I need to walk down to the parking garage, get my car, and then drive the 10 minutes to my friend's house. And that's probably going to take me like a 20 minutes at least to get there, right? And then your friend's like, well, we have to leave at 5, so are you sure you're going to be here? And you're like, yeah, of course, because I finish at 5. It makes sense, right? No, not necessarily. So we don't necessarily think about that and take those sorts of things into consideration. When we talk about like how like allowing time for things, one thing I noticed in creating the ADHD home membership is I struggle with estimating how long things will take me, like how long it'll take me to write this workbook or how long it'll take me to create the outline of this video and then record the videos and edit them and upload them and all of that. Like I keep just being like an hour for that and an hour for that and an hour for that, when in actual fact I was like, oh, lucky I didn't like put a deadline on it and say it's going to be open in like July, because it took me till November, my friends. So that was a really fascinating one for me, is like learning how long things take. Time blindness can also be, as I just said, struggling to accurately estimate how long a task will take you, okay? And it can also be procrastinating or avoiding things until that very last minute. It can also look like always running late, right? So people who struggle with time blindness often run late. They think that they've got maybe more time to do just one more thing. Oh yeah, I've got time to hang out the washing. And actually, no, by the time you've done that, it took you 15 minutes. You needed to leave like 10 minutes ago. Like now you're running late, right? And it's not just always running late. It can be the extreme opposite of that, which is where I fall, which is the always early. Like I always like calculate everything. Like, okay, so my last client finishes today at 3:00. Now I'm going to need 10 minutes to get myself ready. And then it's 20 minutes to drive there. So I need to effectively like leave at this time. And like I calculate everything, like break it down like very, very slowly, but I always need to be early. Like I overestimate things, right? If I'm late, I'm super anxious. If I'm on time, I'm super anxious. Right? So again, time blindness can be different for each of us, and we can be at opposite ends of the extreme in that way. And often part of time blindness is thinking you have more time than you do and starting something that you do not have time for. Oh my gosh, I have done this so many times when it comes to like cleaning out the fridge or cleaning out the kitchen, and like you pull everything out of the cupboards and you're like, oh, I'm going to rearrange the kitchen and like get rid of all of this shit that we don't need, etc. And then all of a sudden like you're like, holy crap, like I'm running late and there's stuff all over the kitchen floor and I have to get out of here, and it's like, oh my God, what have I done? Why have I started this? And then you've like lost interest in it completely. Oh, my friends. That is time blindness. So number 4 is restlessness. That feeling of being restless. So that could be that you have a really busy mind, a busy brain that just never seems to shut off. Okay. And often what it looks like is having difficulty resting and relaxing. Hello, my fellow active relaxers. This is us. All right. This is part of restlessness. What else it is you may feel like you always need to be doing something and you have trouble being still, right? Like you have difficulty just, sitting down and maybe even just reading a book or just sitting down and just not doing anything. Like you have to be doing something. I struggle to describe it because I'm that person. I always feel like I have to be doing something. I actually want to be doing something. But this can be detrimental if we're not resting and relaxing at the same time and getting enough of that. We can, burn out quite easily. Part of that restlessness is also our fidgeting, right? Like it could be that you play with your hair, like you twirl it around your finger. Or for me, it's like I've got rings on my fingers. I wear 4 rings and I'm always twisting them, turning them round and round and round. It could be that you're tapping your pen. Maybe you've got fidget items that you take with you, right? I've got them in all of my bags. It could be that you're, tapping your leg up and down, right? Fidgeting is a big one. Number 5 is the emotional roller coaster. Okay, so effectively this is like emotional dysregulation, but I say the emotional roller coaster because it often looks like having high highs. Like when we're good, we're great. And when we're down, it feels like our whole world is over. High highs, low lows, right? You may also be considered like moody or up and down. Maybe people have said to you before, you're very moody, or I feel like I have to walk on eggshells around you, right? That kind of up and down mood. Emotional roller coasters is also the overreacting to things or noticing that you get more upset, or it could even be more excited in situations where other people, in comparison to other people, right? So there is, like, if there is something that you're not happy with, right? So maybe, gosh, I'm trying to think of an example. No, my brain's gone. I had an example like right there and I could kind of feel it and then it went. So no, we're not going to do that. So that was the overreacting, right? Or getting more upset, having a bigger reaction to something in comparison to somebody else. And it might not necessarily be upset. It could also be like you're more excitable. Like somebody might be like, oh, calm down. Like it's exciting, but not that exciting, right? That kind of a thing. This could also look like shutting down, right? So you may, if you have an emotional reaction, an intense reaction, and maybe it's that you feel like you've been rejected or you've been criticized, that may look like you going inward and just shutting down completely. Part of the emotional roller coasters is the being really quick to get frustrated, like being probably more frustrated than other people around you, right? You easily get frustrated more frequently, more often than other people. That is something I definitely see in most of us, myself for sure, right? I very easily get frustrated. Like just yesterday, and this is the silliest thing, but we've got this like extension cord, I'm trying to think, Ethernet cable, that's the proper word. So it's an Ethernet cable where you can plug directly into the internet at the wall. So it gives you a stronger connection. And I have this for my office, for my coaching, for my work, right? And one of the kids had borrowed it, which was fine because I have two, and I had been away and I came back to find that it was plugged into his Xbox and then plugged into the wall. And what that meant is it was running past 2 bedroom doors, one of which is his younger brother's. And I was like, that's a trip hazard. That's not going to end well. And so I was like, as soon as I saw it, I got home like about midday yesterday. As soon as I saw it, I was like, for fuck's sake, like, come on, like, it's not that hard to take out. And of course, it's not simple, like, it's not smart to leave it in like that. Like, I was just so quick to get frustrated about it. And I hadn't even had a conversation with him. I hadn't even told him, hey, you're going to need to unplug that and move it if you're going to be using it. But I just jumped straight to frustration, right? Emotional roller coasters is we could be really explosive, right? Like we can be quite like very quick to be explosive and to react. And it's also feeling things more intensely and more deeply than other people. Again, that kind of comes back to the high highs, low lows. But there are studies that show we do feel our emotions more intensely and deeply than others. So when we're hurt, like it's just that little bit more intense for us, okay? And you may have noticed that. You may think that, the way that you feel or the way you respond isn't necessarily the same as other people around you, and that would be right. Number 6 is the instant gratification seeker. Hello, my friends. So this is when you have difficulty achieving long-term goals, right? For example, if you want to run a marathon and you might be a casual runner and you might do like 5Ks here and there, but you've got this like goal to run a famous marathon, the Boston, New York marathon, whatever, like run a famous marathon. But it's going to require you to train and have like a plan and do all of these things. And if you struggle with achieving long-term goals, my friend, you would not be alone. That is a very common symptom for us. If you have no tolerance for being bored, okay, gosh, I feel that one deeply. That is like if we need to do something when we're bored, right? We seek that stimulation, like, want to stay busy, all of that. Like, we need that gratification. We need to keep doing something. It can also look like prioritizing the fun and the easy things over the hard or the important. Instant gratification seeker is also struggling to do things you don't like or don't want to do. And more like living in the present, like just living in today, being more concerned about how you feel today and what's happening today, not thinking about like how what you're doing today is going to affect tomorrow or next week, right? For example, like I did not record the podcast yesterday when I was initially going to. And I was like, oh, it's fine. I can just do it tomorrow, right? But I didn't actually, and at the time, like I was like, no, like I'm just really not in the energy for it. Like I'm not feeling great. Like I haven't got everything ready, etc. And so I was like, no, that'll be fine, right? Like I just wanted to not have to do all the extra work yesterday, right? I was like in the present. But I didn't think about how pushing that out like was going to impact today and the other things that I need to get today and work in amongst my schedule of clients and all of that. So again, like living in the present, not necessarily thinking about how your actions today are going to impact you tomorrow, next week, right? Like that long-term thinking. All right. Number 7 is forgetfulness. So if you forget the name of people that you've just met, I do this all the time. It could be like the name of places you've been to, right? I have traveled like to almost 50 countries, 50 places around the world, and I have forgotten so many names. Oh my God, it's wild. And people will ask me for like travel tips and advice, and I just can't remember. And it's the same with people. Like I will meet someone, and as soon as I've met them, the name is just gone. Right? It's just gone. So forgetfulness is also like forgetting what you were saying mid-sentence, right? Forgetting what the question was that somebody just asked you. It might also be that you forget what you just read, right? You're reading some information on a page, or you're reading a book, you go to turn the page and you're like, what the heck? Where was my brain, right? My brain was somewhere else. I didn't take in any of that. It's also being very out of sight, out of mind, right? So you might forget your friends. You might forget that there's a text that you need to reply to or a phone call that you need to reply to because you're not seeing it. It's not in front of you, right? It's the same with projects. Like let's say you started some painting and then you like put the painting away in a cupboard and now you can't see it and you completely forgot that you were even doing that was a thing, right? So again, very out of sight, out of mind. And another thing I've put in this category, but it does fall in a few categories, is having difficulty with following through and doing what you said you were going to do. And that can be maybe like part of the instant gratification, but it could also be that you forget. It could be impulsivity, okay? But let's say you say, hey, I'm going to repair the light bulb. I'm thinking of an example we actually had. Like we needed to fix these 2 lights in our hallway and they're really effing awkward to get out. And so going down the stairs in our house had no lights because both of them had blown at the same time. And so if you were going up and down the stairs at night, like you couldn't really see shit. It was pretty dangerous. And I had said, you know what, I'll just do it because my partner was just not doing it. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. I'll just do it. And I just kept forgetting that I was going to do that until it's like pitch black at night. And then I'm like, oh, God damn it. Like I needed to do those lights. So I had said I was going to do it, but then I wasn't following through because I'd forgotten, right? So again, it could be because, you have difficulty following through on a diet plan that you want to stick to because, at night when you're feeling restless, you're like, no, I just really want to eat something and tomorrow I'll start again, right? So again, you're not necessarily thinking about how what you're doing now is going to impact tomorrow. Number 8 is difficulty with organizing and prioritizing. So if everything feels like it's important to you and you struggle to prioritize. And I've seen this before, actually. I think of a client example recently where a client was moving overseas. And so in a matter of, I think it was about 8 weeks, and she and her partner needed to get rid of things, put things in storage, let their rental company know for their house, maybe sell cars, all of these sorts of things, right? So there's a lot involved in doing this, and it all needs to be done before you go. And she was getting very overwhelmed because all of it felt very urgent, important, had to be done right now. Right? So again, if you struggle to kind of prioritize in what order things need to get done, because obviously you need to let your where you're living in the rental agency know with a certain amount of notice, right? You don't want to sell your car now if you're going to need it for the next 8 weeks, right? There's a certain order of things that need to happen. But if everything feels important and urgent right now and you can struggle to separate that, again, difficulty organizing and planning, my friends. It can also look like having trouble managing your schedule and completing the things on your to-do list. It could be that you double book yourself or you forget appointments, right? Having trouble kind of managing all of those sorts of things, like what's on your list that you need to get done, right? Having trouble organizing everything in your head. That's a big one. And if you find managing your finances and your money difficult, right? Maybe you think you're not very good with money, or, you might forget about bills, or you might spend more than you've got to spend, or that kind of a thing. If you have difficulty with that, again, super common ADHD symptom and trait. Number 9, my friends, is trouble starting and finishing tasks. Okay, so I'm a prime example. Lots of unfinished projects or hobbies. Right? I just told you about my fluorescent painting phase, right? But unfinished projects and hobbies, that's a big one. And it, initially we really enjoy it, we're really into it, and we lose interest or we forget about it or something more exciting comes along or what have you. And yeah. It can also look like struggling to do things just because you're supposed to do them. I have seen this in such a variety of ways for people, struggling to drink water, struggling to brush teeth, struggling to wash your hair. That's something I hate doing. I just hate washing my hair, right? Struggling to do anything just because you're supposed to do it, like washing, right? Cleaning certain things. It's also needing a deadline in order to get things done. I see this a lot with people who work for themselves, right? Like myself included, right? When we are self-employed, or we've got a lot of flexibility in our job and like you can work from home, it can be difficult to get things done when we don't necessarily have a deadline in place. So, we might, kind of take this day off or just kind of faff around, and then all of a sudden it's like cram at the end, or holy shit, like I've got to stay up till, midnight, or I've got to get up at 4 a.m. to get this done. It's also if you lose interest or lose focus and things just don't get done, right? That's what it might look like for the trouble with the trouble starting and finishing tasks, right? You just lose interest in something, or somebody walks past and all of a sudden you're having a conversation about something else and off you walk, and things just don't get done. And if you give into temptation to do things that are more fun and interesting, right? That's a big one. And I don't think that's necessarily, I don't think it's a problem, but it can become problematic depending on how we do that, right? Because of course we love the dopamine, and getting dopamine is really important. But if we're, giving into the temptation of doing something and something has a deadline, or, we're liable or responsible to somebody else, it can become a little bit problematic. Yeah. All right, so just to recap, these 9 categories, and again, you can download this with all of the examples, okay? And I'll pop that link in the show notes for you. But the 9 categories are impulsivity, distractibility, time blindness, restlessness, emotional roller coasters, instant gratification seeker, forgetfulness, difficulty with organizing and prioritizing, and number 9 is the trouble with starting and finishing tasks. Okay, now, if you are not yet diagnosed and you are wanting to get a diagnosis, I definitely recommend that you print this out, right? Print this out. As I said, go through, highlight them, make some notes, circle those that apply to you, and then, go along to your appointment and you will have something to work off and some examples to be able to share, which will be really, really helpful. Okay, so again, you can get that in the show notes. Huge love, my friend. Take care. Have a beautiful week. I'll speak to you soon. Hey friend, if you feel like your ADHD is holding you back and you just don't really know where to start, ADHD Home was made for you. It's what I wish I'd had when I was first diagnosed at 36, feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, and just really struggling to figure out how to work with my brain. Inside ADHD Home, you will find everything you need to finally get unstuck and start making real progress towards your goals. You've got over 60 videos designed to help you understand, manage, and thrive with ADHD. Plus, you get regular coaching calls from me. You've got a safe place to ask your questions, get support. There are masterclasses each month on ADHD topics like RSD and emotional regulation. And you have a community of other adults with ADHD who have got your back. Inside ADHD Home, you will learn how to take control of your life and start feeling better. You'll feel seen, supported, and equipped with everything you need to build the life you have always wanted. Visit adhdhome.co.nz. My friend, it is time to make ADHD work for you. Let's go.